I've got this set of compost over here that's been in it's about 3 weeks now, I guess 4 weeks since we moved over here, and returned it at that time, and now it's back. It's way down considerably. I believe it's as done as it's going to get. So I'm going to filter that. We've got some planter boxes we need to fill up and put some strawberries and various things in, so we're going to utilize this filter here. I've built a trommel and it's missing some parts, so not quite ready to use that yet. So still doing this the old-fashioned method, and I'm going to just use this filter on top of a wheelbarrow and shovel it in and filter it by hand. So let me get that going, and I got a natural tripod here. I'm going to be putting this up in the tree. So if this video is a little shaky for a moment, bear with me. Just got to set this up here in the tree, and been getting some test videos and seems like it's pretty good, so hopefully that angle is going to work. And let me get over here and get to work on some of this. I'm moving the top layer back because it's not really fully composted, and we'll reuse that. So I'm going to move that back and then take the bottom, which is really compacted. So move some of this back here. Yeah, see, it's nice black soil, really good stuff. And we just take this, and I just do it by hand. I usually take 2 or 3 shovelfuls. I'm just going to take one for the moment. And I look for any kind of big debris like this and just throw it back in, and then just move this around. Using gloves is always a good idea. And working through trying to find any garbage that we have. We got a trash can over there. There's an eggshell that didn't quite get done yet. And this only takes just a couple of minutes, and you just, I mean, you can shake it with 2 people. I'm doing this by myself, so yeah, there's I don't know, some kind of fruit that didn't get done. There's a few pieces that haven't composted well yet. That's very normal when in your compost, and you just go through here and try to take out as much of the trash as you can, and then once you're done, now this is pretty much done. No. Okay, so that looks like about all the good stuff I'm going to get out of there. And now all I've got is a bunch of woody kind of material, and I could filter that just a little more, but there's not really a need to. What I do, we just use this. You can use this for mulch. Another little piece of trash in there. So you can use this for mulch, or you can just throw it back into the composter, which is what I'm going to do right now. Nice rich compost. All of it comes from vegetable scraps, and we don't use a lot of carbon in this. You know, people talk about having green and brown. We don't get a lot of brown here, so this is the kind of stuff we do get, though. We get about 25 pounds of these vegetable scraps a week. This comes from the kitchen at the other school. Now we've been starting to mix in a few cardboard boxes and some egg cartons. We're experimenting with that in order to get a little bit more of the carbon stuff in to see if it makes much of a difference. And you know, one of the things I've noticed is that it does make a lot of difference. Something I've never done in many years of composting. I've never really covered the compost pile. But I was watching a video the other day on the internet and talking about should you cover or not. Well, this has actually some good compost I just filtered. I just used this filter here and took some compost out of here. I've got to clean this up and make room for a new stack today, because this has all been beaten down and it's all ready to go. So I moved the top back so I could get into the really good stuff down here at the bottom, and I'm going to take that because I've got some planting to go do here in a little bit. Got a couple of strawberries that need to get in the ground, so we're going to put them in a planter box, and wanted to get just to the best of the compost right away. And then later we're going to run that through this bigger stuff. We're going to run that through my new trommel, which I just built the other day, and we haven't used it yet, but it's got a couple of parts that I still got to put on there, a little tweaking before I try it. So still doing this today with the filter. Anyway, just did some filtering, got out this real good compost that came out from here, and then this is the big stuff, the brown that you see there. But all this green stuff, that's typically what we have, is just a big old pile of vegetables and green stuff. And of course the droppings from the guinea pigs here, they have their droppings, and their urine goes down in here, so that gets all mixed in, and that's what we do in this one. And we're kind of experimenting with how that works, because later we've got this second cage, and we'll be putting the babies and the mamas over here, because we have to separate the papa. There's only one male that we have and 3 females, and we have to separate the male from the babies or he'll kill them. At least that's what the people tell us. So I've never raised guinea pigs like that, but we're going to see what happens. Anyway, back to this covering the compost or not. And as you see, this is just a big pile of green stuff that just goes in. And if we dig down a little bit, we can see that we've got, you know, stuff starting to compost, and there's some in here that a little further down that's pretty nice. But it's kind of stinky and messy, and so I was watching that video the other day, and somebody's talking about should we cover the compost or not, and I've been testing this, and so far I'm really interested in the results, because as we were talking about, we had some pretty good compost. I wanted to dig just a little deeper in here. There's another plastic bag, and we haven't really done much with this. Just let it sit. We just kind of throw the stuff in and let it sit. There was a bunch of roses and stuff. As you can see, there's a lot of flies in here, and I need to put some more lime on this to keep the smell down and keep the flies away. But anyway, it's kind of okay, but there's a whole lot of non-composted stuff in there. But I've added these cardboard boxes onto the top, and look what's happening. And this is pretty much the same. I mean, we get different material, but it's pretty much the same. You might can tell there's some potato peels in there, and there's some carrots and various things like that. Lettuce, we get a lot of that. Cabbage or cauliflower, broccoli kind of things. So there's a lot of that, but see how much more that's broken down. And I think it's just because the heat is staying inside. These are not very high. Typically you want to get a compost pile about 3 feet high, and generally I do keep them. These are about 1 foot squares with a little bit of space in between them, and generally I try to keep it up to about that high. But since we put the cage up here, haven't been able to really keep it that high. So I'm running 2 bins with fresh type of ingredients. I mean, day and night, I mean, what do you want to say? There's absolutely a difference, and the only real difference that I can say of what is happening is that we've had the cardboard on top of that one, and we still add the things to both of the bins. One time we'll add them in one time in the other. I mean, it's not been really anything scientific, but I've just been covering it every time with that cardboard, and I just believe it's making a big difference. So I'm going to make the experiment to put new cardboard over here and see how that works. The only problem is with the guinea pigs, their droppings and everything will kind of mess up the cardboard. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. I want to see if that's really going to help. This is going to be a later experiment, because today I've got to move this other compost bin. This is the finished compost, and we've got to clean that out and make room, and you know, it's time to get this stuff all mixed together, and then it will be about a 3 foot pile once I move these 2 piles over and get them into there. Probably should come up to about that that third level there, and then it'll sit for a little while and it'll go down and do some more composting, and well, wonderful things that compost piles do. So that's where we are, but I really think the message here is that covering your compost is something you probably ought to try. If you're not doing it, you probably ought to try it. And I've built compost piles many times, very similar to this kind of arrangement here, and I typically will put a top on them to keep the rain out so it won't get too wet. And also, if it's like in a dry area where we've got, like in California I lived in, we had to actually add a mister to get water in there. So we did irrigation to add water into the compost pile. But here we've got decent moisture pretty much all the time. We don't add water very much. Looks like I probably need to add a little bit right now, but we don't add it, but every, I don't know, 2-3 weeks we might add a little bit of water. So not much, but that cardboard has really made quite a bit of difference. So anyway, you might want to give that a try. And if you're wondering, if it works or not, well, see if it works for you. Let me know in the comments, because I'd really be interested to see how well that experiment works on your compost pile.